kirtan and we'll wait for others to come. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Radharani Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Radharani Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Radharani Sadhaivam sadhutam Sadhaivam Krishnaya Shri Radha Krishna Sadhaiva Shri Radha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandhu Jagadpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Namaste Adaptakancha Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpadurvasya Vipasandurvayasya Pranidhanam Bhavebhyo Vaishnaveyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura-Bhatta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna. I'll just sit on this chair so that it's easier to see what I mean. Okay, Hare Krishna. So how's everyone doing? Okay?
Yes.
Enough rest?
No.
Usually the first complaint on a trip is that someone in your room is snoring. Did it happen?
That is true.
I tell you, an amazing thing happened to me this morning. Admittedly, I'm still tired from the trip, journey here. So this morning after class, I decided to take rest. So you know, when you lie down, you put your timer on for a certain amount. So I thought, how many minutes should I give myself today? So I was thinking maybe 25 minutes is good. I thought, let me give myself 27 minutes. So I this is a true story. So I was just upstairs, Nehal's witness, he's in the room with me. So I put my timer on for 27 minutes, right, and I went to sleep. You know, I'm the type of person, I can sleep anywhere.
Yes, we noticed that on the boat.
Yeah, you know, I said, you saw me. I can even sleep standing up.
That's a skill.
I'll teach you that. Come and live in the Brahmachari ashram, you do that. So I lied down. Actually, it's a good sign. Prabhupada said, one of our teachers said, if you lie down and you can sleep straight away, it's a very good sign. It means there's less tension. There's nothing to do. So anyway, so I went to sleep, and I tell you, I went into such a deep sleep that my dreams, I went all around the world.
Oh, very good.
Like I did so much. I did so much in my dream. Yeah, like I went like everywhere. But you know what happened? At one point I woke up, and you know how many minutes? The alarm didn't go off. I just woke up, and I looked at my phone, and you know how many minutes were left?
1 minute.
And 12 minutes were left. So in 15 minutes, I did so much. But it was in my dream. but then I woke up and I thought, this is very significant. You know why it's significant? Because 500 years ago, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he began in a revolution, isn't it? He gave the holy name, he traveled around India, and he predicted Priti Vidyachayata Nagaradi Gram. He started a revolution. But he said one day someone will come and take it everywhere. And then many hundreds of years later, Prabhupada took up that mission. We were hearing this morning, isn't it? And when Prabhupada traveled to America, what year was it? 1965. And when Prabhupada left the world, what year was it? 1975 minus 1965 equals 12. So when I woke up, I thought, wow, it's very significant, you know. So many things happened in those 15 minutes of the dream, but then 12 more were needed to finish the dream. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came and he did all these amazing miracles. And Srila Prabhupada, he just came again, and in 12 years, he did the unthinkable. You know, when the manor was closing down, you remember? Some of you remember. Yes. Then we had to employ many people to defend. You know, you have to employ lawyers.
I've been 2 times at the
on the demonstration. So we had a lawyer. You know, there's these very intelligent lawyers. They are like, they have these like wigs, if you remember. They're very intelligent. Because to pass law, I studied at UCL, so I had many friends who were lawyers. You have to read many books. So he came to defend us, but the devotee said, in order to defend us, you need to understand something about our philosophy. So he said, no problem, give me the books. But they said, no, we have lots of books. He said, how many books do you have? He said, 60. He said, no, give them all. I know, I can speed read. They can speed read. Like. So anyway, they gave him the books. This is true story. Shivaram Swami tells this story. And then he came back. So they said, did you get it? He said, yeah, I read it all. Bhagavatam. He said, I read it all. So he said, very good philosophy. Good philosophy. He said, but one thing I want to tell you, this man, he's amazing. So Shivaram Swami said, yeah, we know. He said, you don't know. He said, you don't know. Shivaram Swami said, no, we know. We also read the books. He said, no, you don't know. You don't know. Shivaram Swami said, no, I know. And that's why I dedicated my whole life to him. He said, no, you don't know. So Shivaram Swami said, why? He said, I am 70 years old. You are 40 years old. Shivaram Swami was younger. He said, you are 40 years old. He said, I'm 70 years old. I know what it feels like to be 70. And to do what this man has done at the age of 70 is truly remarkable. Hare Krishna. Nice to see you.
You were in Paris recently, right?
Yes.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. So Prabhupada is remarkable, and today, what more better topic can we have than to remember Prabhupada's personality? Most of us, most of you grew up in Vedic culture, so you know what is a guru. From day one, you knew what is a guru. But Srila Prabhupada wasn't just a guru, Srila Prabhupada was an acharya. If I ask you what's the difference between an acharya and a guru, what would you say? Is there a difference? There's a difference. What's the difference between an acharya and a guru? Yes, Krishna.
The acharya guides and teaches a greater number of people, a greater volume of people.
He teaches a greater volume of people. A guru may have a certain number of disciples that they teach. But an acharya, his teachings go for generations. Even people that never see that acharya are learning from him every day. How many of you didn't see Srila Prabhupada? Okay, but every day you're learning. That's acharya. Generations of teaching. What else? Any other difference between a guru and an acharya? Yes, Mataji.
He says teachings according to the time, space, and circumstance.
Yeah, a guru, they teach from the books and then they teach, as it is given. But an acharya has so much insight that an acharya can adapt the teachings in order to make it practicable and relevant and appropriate for the people in that time. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada was able to say, okay, 64 rounds, too much. You will not be able to do it. 32 rounds, still. 16 rounds, okay, that you must do, but not less. So 16 rounds. You have to do 16 rounds. One devotee once said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, do we have to chant our rounds when we go back to the spiritual world? Prabhupada said, with an attitude like that, you're not going to get there. Prabhupada, he made it relevant. He adapted. He's a genius. He innovated. Anything else? What's another difference between a guru and a acharya?
The translation.
Translation. Acharyas are translating scriptures and making it accessible. Of the Goswamis, we hear a very beautiful verse. Nana shastra vicharane kunikuno sadharma sanstapako. They were studying all the scriptures, and then what they were doing is extracting the essence of all of that knowledge for the benefit of the world. So Prabhupada was translating. When Prabhupada was in 26 2nd Avenue, then he had all, because he was typing all the time. How many of you have used a typewriter? It's nothing like an iPhone. It looks the same. It's so difficult, isn't it? Even just to press the key, you have to press so hard. And then if you make a mistake, Prabhupada was typewriting all of his manuscripts. So one day, one boy came to Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, I want to do some service. He said, what are you good at? So he was good at like transcribing and transferring manuscripts into, and then making it ready to make it into a book. So he said, I can do this. So Prabhupada said, oh, very good. So Prabhupada gave him some manuscript to turn into, so that they could produce it into a book. So then he came back 1 week later and he said, all done, here it is. And then Prabhupada opened the cupboard and there were stacks and stacks of manuscripts. So he said, you're done, here's some more. And he looked at all of the manuscripts and he said, this is a lifetime of translation. Prabhupada said, this is many lifetimes of translation. So the moral of the story is, when you come to the Hare Krishna temple, be careful when you ask for service. There may not be any end to it. It's an ongoing process. So yes, Prabhupada was very special. He wasn't just a guru, he was an acharya. He's not just an acharya, but he's our founder acharya. If there's any doubt, if there's any dispute, if there's any place that we have to go back to find out what's the real answer, then it all goes back to Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, we would often tell devotees, you should wear a band around your wrist. WWPD. What would Prabhupada do? In any given situation, we should be able to say, because that's where we get our strength from. So today we're going to discuss a little bit about Srila Prabhupada's personality. The personality of the pure devotee is incredible because it has all of these extremes. And sometimes you think you can only have one or the other, but the pure devotee, they have both. Like for example, some people are quiet, or some people are introvert, some people are extrovert. Put your hand up if you're an introvert. It took them some time to put their hand. Who's an extrovert? Yeah, see, that one went up quick. Who likes Western prasadam more than Indian prasadam? Western? No one.
What's the difference?
Western, pizza, pasta, or something else. One or the other. So sometimes we have different aspects to our personality. What I'm going to try to share with you is how Srila Prabhupada was so incredible that he could have two aspects to his personality which you think it can only be one or the other, but Srila Prabhupada had both. And that's what made him such a remarkable personality. So, is that okay for me to do that? And then I'm going to open it up if at any point you want to ask a question. You don't have to wait till the end to ask question. If you have any question, then we can take that. Is there any question so far? Okay. So Srila Prabhupada, all angles of vision. The very first thing I want to share with you is how Srila Prabhupada was so deep. Does anyone know where this photo is from? Radha Damodar. Does anyone know what year this photo was taken in? 1963?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that question. It was sometime in the 60s. This is Srila Prabhupada in Radha Damodar Temple, Vrindavan. This temple is an incredible place. Srila Prabhupada said it's the hub of the wheel of the entire spiritual world. It's the center of the spiritual world. In Radha Damodar Temple, the Goswamis of Vrindavan were coming together every single day and discussing all the teachings of Chaitanya Dev. Just behind the Radha Damodar Temple there is a wall, and over that wall is Seva Kunj. You know what happens in Seva Kunj? Radha and Krishna, the divine couple, do their Rasa Leela every single day. If you go to Radha Damodar Temple today, then you will only hear the ringing of bells, the singing of Hare Krishna. You will only hear talks of Krishna going on. And maybe a few rickshaws. Radha Damodar is an incredible place. Srila Prabhupada came here in 1959. He took sannyas and he came and he said, I will come and stay in Radha Damodar Temple and I will practice intensely my sadhana, my bhajan. I will read, translate. Srila Prabhupada was praying deeply to Rupa Goswami. One day it said that one of the pujaris in the middle of the night, he heard some sounds. So then he came over and he looked into the courtyard. Now it's covered, at that time it was open. And in the courtyard he saw Srila Prabhupada in the middle of the night. Srila Prabhupada had a broom. And Srila Prabhupada was sweeping in front of the samadhi of Rupa Goswami. And Prabhupada was praying, oh, Rupa Goswami, my spiritual master has given me such a difficult task. How will I do it? How will I achieve it? Please give me your mercy. Like this, he said, Srila Prabhupada in the middle of the night was praying for mercy. Srila Prabhupada sometimes he would do Govardhan Parikrama. And for those of you who have gone on Govardhan Parikrama, the culmination is to go to Radha Kund. Radha Kund is said to be a most sacred place for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So sometimes Prabhupada would go there and chant. And there was one Babaji there. He was living in Radha Kund his whole life. And later on, you know what he said? He said, I've been living in Radha Kund for 80 years. I've seen so many sadhus, so many gurus, so many people come here. But I have never seen anyone do their chanting as intensely as Bhaktivedanta Swami. So Srila Prabhupada, he was just going very, very deep. He was going very, very trying to find Krishna within his heart. It wasn't just like Hare Krishna, Krishna. No, it was chanting with depth. It wasn't just reading, okay, I've got to do my 30 pages today, or I've got to, no. In the books, he was finding Krishna, he was connecting with Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada was just going very, very deep into his own connection with Krishna. What do you think could be the opposite to going deep? In a good way. Yeah, don't be shy.
Shallow.
Travel.
Shallow.
Shallow. Yeah. Prabhupada definitely wasn't shallow. But what do you think sometimes is another aspect of life that we should do, but that's difficult if you want to spend time going deep?
Reflecting.
Reflecting? Okay. Sharing. Usually those two things are in competition, isn't it? I've got to take care of myself, I've got to go deep, but I've got to also go out and serve others and help others. But if I spend time for that, I can't go deep. And if I'm going deep, then I have no time to go and serve others. But what was the other amazing thing about Srila Prabhupada? He was not just going very, very deep, but he was also reaching out further and further and further. In that time, he said that no Indian guru would cross the ocean and go into the land of the West. The Paschatya Desh, the Western world, where people eat meat, where people do all kinds of acts. No one would go and venture there. But Prabhupada did. Prabhupada went there. Where is this? Does anyone know where this picture is taken?
New York.
Yes, New York, Tompkins Square Park, New York. Just see here, Prabhupada went from the center of the spiritual world. And where did he arrive? In the center of the material world. He did both. And you know what? He was with Krishna in both situations. Srila Prabhupada arrived in America and it was like he was an alien. It was so alien for him. You know, one time they took Prabhupada to a program, the hippies, in San Francisco. So when they walked into the hall, the devotees walked into the hall with Prabhupada and they looked on the stage, and you know what was happening on the stage? There were 5 hippies and they were dressed as bananas. And they were dancing on the stage. I mean, imagine if you come to do a program and just before you're about to speak, there's 5 people in banana suits. It's not the ideal setting, you know? So Prabhupada walked in, he's like, what's going on here? Prabhupada said, what is the meaning of this? So the one devotee, he said, Prabhupada, don't try this at home, by the way. He said, Prabhupada, the hippies are celebrating. Why? Because they found out that if you take banana skin and you dry it under certain situation and then you burn it in a certain way and you inhale that fume, then it's a cheap alternative for LSD. So they're celebrating. Don't try this at home. So Prabhupada was just like, he was amazed. One devotee said, but Prabhupada, there's very good news. The hippies here, they have agreed to donate 5 kgs of bananas to the Jagannath temple every single week. But the only deal is, they want the banana skins back. Can you imagine? We don't want the banana. Take the banana. We want the skins. Prabhupada came to a place where people were so different. Mukunda Maharaj tells the story, he was in a car with Prabhupada. He didn't know Jesus, Guru. What to speak of Acharya? He didn't even know Guru. So he pulled out an apple and he said, "Yo, Swamiji, you want an apple?" So Prabhupada was about to take it, and before it, he thought, "Let me just test it, that it's sweet." So he took a bite out of it. And then he gave it to Prabhupada. They didn't know. They didn't know. It was so different. Prabhupada went to a convenience store, and then when he got to the till, the person put in and said, $20. Prabhupada said, "I'll give you 10. The person was like, in India, you never take the first price, You always bargain. It's a process, You have to bring down the price. He said, No, it doesn't work like this. There's a price, you pay the price. But Srila Prabhupada, he was in such a different place. Have you seen the picture? Prabhupada, he's walking down in New York with a walking stick and an overcoat. In New York of 1965. The winter of 1965 in New York was the coldest recorded winter in history. And Prabhupada was right there. Prabhupada had never seen snow. When he opened the curtains and he saw snow, he said, "I thought someone had painted the whole city white." Who can do it? Who can go deep and at the same time reach out to others? Srila Prabhupada could. That's what made him so amazing. Srila Prabhupada was always thinking big. One time, Tribhuvannath Puri tells the story that they drove Prabhupada by Buckingham Palace. And as they were driving in the car, one devotee said, Prabhupada, you'll never guess what happened. Prabhupada said, what? He said, one of the Queen's guards, they wear that hat. He said, one of the Queen's guards has become a devotee. So the devotee was really excited. He said, one of the Queen's guards has become a devotee. So Prabhupada was just serious, and he looked at the devotee and he said, "Oh, and what about the Queen?" This devotee was thinking, it's big news, one of the Queen's guards has become a devotee. Prabhupada wanted the Queen. Prabhupada went to Chicago airport, and it was called O'Hare Airport. Prabhupada said, "Go to them and tell them to change their name, O'Hare Krishna." Thinking big. Does anyone know where this picture is? Sri Dham Mayapur. In the very early days, you see, it's just a field. Just a field, infested with snakes, infested with rats, mosquitoes. Prabhupada came there and he had a vision that we should build the spiritual capital of the entire world here. So one time, Prabhupada was on a morning walk with Bhagavat Prabhu. And they were walking, there were just a few devotees there in Mayapur. And you know what Prabhupada said to Bhagavat Prabhu? He said, "I want you to buy all the land in Mayapur." The devotees already thought, we have this much land, we don't know what to do with it. Prabhupada said, "I want you to buy all the land in Mayapur." And then Prabhupada said, and then the next thing you should do is you should apply to the Indian government for independence. And you should create the country of Mayapur. And then Prabhupada said, and then we will have our own economy, we will have our own currency, 2 Chaitanyas, 5 Chaitanyas, 10 Chaitanyas. And then every single temple president around the world will be an ambassador of the country of Mayapur. And then we will have our import and export business. We will export incense and so many transcendental paraphernalia to the world. That was Srila Prabhupada's vision at that time. This is Sridham Mayapur now. It was just a bare land. It was just a land. If you go to Mayapur today and then you cross the Jalangi, then you can go to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house. Swananda Sukhada Kunj, you can go to Bhaktivinoda's house. And if you walk up onto the first floor, you can go onto the balcony. And he said that one day Bhaktivinoda Thakur was on that balcony and he was overlooking the Jalangi, Ganga. And he was looking to the other side and he prophesied there will be a temple on the horizon. There will be a temple on the horizon. And it's amazing. If you go to that balcony today and you look in that direction, then what do you see? Boom. Prabhupada said to the devotees, if you build this temple just for this one service, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will take you back to Godhead. So the devotees did it. So much struggle in the early days. Bhavananda Prabhu tells of how in the early days of Mayapur, they were trying to get cement. Cement was like gold. And then the delivery would come, but then at night time the dacoits would come and steal the cement bags. So Prabhupada told Bhavananda, you have to guard it. And you have to keep a shotgun. So in the night time, he recalls one time in the night time, in the middle of the night, he was in the middle of Mayapur, in the middle of a field, sleeping on a mountain of cement bags, dressed in a dhoti, with a shotgun in his hand. And he thought, how did my life end up like this? I'm in the middle of nowhere. In the country I don't know. I'm in the middle of a field. I'm sleeping on a mountain of cement bags. I'm dressed in bed sheets. And I have a shotgun in my hand. Prabhupada told him, when the dacoits come, shoot. But don't shoot at them. Shoot up, just shoot in the air. So the dacoits would come and then he would shoot into the air. That's how they did it. And you know, Prabhupada, what he said? When this temple comes up, then what I want you to do is keep my original house there. Can anyone see where is Prabhupada's original house in this picture? Can you see? Here? You see this? At one point, this was just an empty field. And there was one mud hut. That was this one. And that was where Prabhupada was staying. And Prabhupada said, when the big temple comes up, you keep that mud hut there. So everyone will know how and where we started and where we are now. So when you go into the main gates, you know, like if you go into Disneyland, like very grand, everything, as you go into the main gate, you're not expecting to see like a mud hut as the first thing, you know. I mean, it's not very impressive, you know. But for us, it's deeply impressive. It's deeply significant. Because it showed that Prabhupada had such a vision. That he saw that there's nothing here, there's struggle, there's problems. But he was thinking big, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can do anything. And from that, this whole temple has come about. But Prabhupada was not only thinking big. The other thing he was doing is he had incredible attention to detail. Does anyone know where this picture is from? Vrindavan Krishna Balaram Temple, another one of Prabhupada's amazing tirthas. Why do you think the Krishna Balaram Temple is an important place for us to learn the quality of Prabhupada paying attention to detail? There was one thing in the Krishna Balaram Temple that Prabhupada was extremely concerned about. Shoes?
The tree?
The?
The tree?
The tree?
The
Yes,
bell.
these are all
The
good
bell.
answers.
The bell.
The bell. How many of you have been to Vrindavan? So you know, on the hour, every hour, the bell goes off, isn't it? So if it's 11 o'clock, when it hits 11 o'clock, then you'll hear 11. So when Prabhupada first created the temple, they installed this bell. And you know what Prabhupada said? I'm judging the entire management of the Vrindavan temple on whether this bell goes off. So in the middle of the night, Prabhupada would be listening. Because you know in India, you have to get a chowkidar, isn't it? Like a security man to put the bell. So these guys, most of the time they're just sleeping. But it was their duty to make sure the bell was going. So in the middle of the night, one time at midnight, Prabhupada rang his bell. Harikesh Prabhu came running in. Prabhupada said, did you hear that? He said, no, I didn't hear. Prabhupada said, that's the problem. He said, you didn't hear, the bell didn't go off. So Harikeshwari ran out, he woke up the chocolate, he said, make sure the bell goes off. Prabhupada is incredibly concerned. The bell must go off. 1 hour later, Prabhupada calls him in, the bell is not going off. Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada was so much attention to detail. So it was the temple president in Vrindavan, it was their biggest anxiety. Forget all the money, forget all the finance, forget the government, forget all these problems, just make sure the bell is going off. Because Prabhupada was so attentive to detail. You know, in bhakti, the love is in the detail. Just like we had in the manor, we had Mother Kalangana. And one Mangal Arati suite, she would spend half an hour painting it. And if you ever saw the paintings of Mother Kalangana on the Mangal Arati suites that were offered to Krishna, just one suite, so much attention to detail. So Prabhupada was thinking big, and at the same time he was paying attention to detail. These are incredible lessons for us. He wasn't doing just big projects, but he was paying attention to every single devotee. One devotee, Atmatattva Prabhu, he mentions that one time there was a Guru Puja of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was on the Vyasasana and all the hundreds of devotees were, Jai Prabhupada, Jai. You can just imagine if you're like that, how so many hundreds of people focused on you. And then one devotee came, offered their flowers to Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada said, wait, this is in the middle of a rousing kirtan where they're glorifying Prabhupada. And Prabhupada saw that this devotee had one bandage on his ankle. And right in the middle of the Guru Puja, it was pandemonium. Everyone was just going ecstatic, crazy. Prabhupada was having a conversation with this devotee saying, what happened to your ankle? What treatment are you using? Is it getting better? Are you taking care of yourself? This is Prabhupada, who was the world Acharya. But he was so kind. He was so kind to the individual. This is a pure devotee, able to do both.
Sorry, Prabhu, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Sorry, it could be my ignorance. What was the significance of the bell?
What was the significance of the bell?
Yeah.
The deeper reason that Prabhupada, he said, after he said to, I think it was one of the leaders there, maybe Gunarnava Prabhu, he said that he made that statement, I am judging the whole management of the Vrindavan temple on whether this bell goes off. And then he made another statement. He said, I've given you such a big institution And if you don't manage it attentively, everything will be lost. You know, Prabhupada, he said, even if you don't create any new temples, even if you don't do any new projects, please at least just maintain what I've given you. And so Prabhupada saw that if there was some slight inattention to detail, then later on, it's like when a ship goes 1 degree off course, then what happens right down the line? You end up in a completely different place. So Prabhupada, he could see that when someone would neglect even a detail, it was leading towards a problem. Like one devotee once came in and he didn't bow down to Prabhupada. Of course, Prabhupada, what did he? He didn't need the respect, but it was culture. Guru means that's culture. He left the room, Prabhupada said that is the beginning of his fall down. And after some months he left. Once Prabhupada, he sent Mukunda Maharaj to bank some money in a bank or a post office or something like that. So Mukunda Maharaj went, he gave it into the cashier, and then he came back. So Prabhupada said, where's the stamp? This was in London. He said, no, the cashier didn't give a stamp. He said, there's no receipt? He said, no, he didn't give a receipt. You know what Prabhupada said? He said, this signifies the end of the British Empire. What's that got to do with the British? Then Prabhupada explained, he said, the British Empire, you know why the British? There were only a handful of them. How were the British able to control the whole of India? How British were able to control so many areas around the world? They used to have a saying, no, the sun never sets on the British Empire. And why were the British so powerful? Because they were organized like anything. And so Prabhupada says, now their administration is going down, that means it's the end of the empire. That was their strong point. That they were organized and intelligent and attentive. When we become lax, Prabhupada said casual means casualty. If someone is casual, if you're casual in how you chant your rounds, know for sure you will be a casualty soon. No, that's a fact. If we're casual in the way we take care of Prabhupada's temples, then eventually things will slide more and more. So therefore Prabhupada was saying, don't just do big things, but also pay attention to detail. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Any other things before I carry on? Any other question anyone has?
Sometimes the opposite can happen where you get so focused on the detail, when they say the phrase is the devil is in the detail, and we also hear, Krishna takes the essence of what we do, so how do we balance the two?
Yeah, there's always a tension between these two because we only have a certain amount of time, we only have a certain amount of energy. With regards to this, the main thing is we should look and introspect that, am I doing something in a quicker way, or am I doing something in a so-called efficient way because I want to go on and do an extra service for Krishna, or am I doing it just because I'm being lazy, just because I don't want to, put in the effort? Then it's insincerity. Sometimes you may not be able to pay attention to all the details, but it's because you've got many other bigger things that you need to do for Krishna. But oftentimes we don't pay attention to the detail because we're just being lazy. So there's no substitute for sincerity. We need to see, sometimes we may do things quick without an attention to the detail, but is it in pursuance of a bigger service to Krishna? So that we have to, and then the other point also comes in, that sometimes in the name of doing something big, we forget to care for the individual. And we say, no, I'm doing something big for Krishna. And then we think it's okay to be insensitive towards others. But actually it's just an excuse because we don't want to give that investment of time, energy and love to that person. And we cover it up with being busy. So there's no substitute for being introspective. And sometimes we have to be very slow and attentive to detail, and sometimes we have to be fast and think about the bigger picture. But in each one, the introspection should be done to make sure that we're not cutting corners. Is that okay? Okay, I'll move on. So much to say about Srila Prabhupada. This is Srila Prabhupada who was so scholarly. This is Srila Prabhupada studying his publications of the Bhagavatam. So Srila Prabhupada, his grasp of the philosophy, perhaps we will never really be able to appreciate how deep it was. Because not only was Prabhupada able to understand the essence of the Shastra, but he was also able to present that in such a way that anyone could understand it. If you can't explain something simple enough so anyone can understand it, it means you don't know it very well. When you know something very well, and when you have the love and desire to give it to someone, even though they may be completely unqualified to understand it, still you will be able to get the message through. That was Srila Prabhupada. Did you know, if you want to become a writer for the Daily Mirror, or if you want to become a writer for The Guardian, do you know who gets paid more? What do you think? Daily Mirror. Why?
It sells more.
Because it sells more?
It's got rubbish.
It's got rubbish stuff in it. Do you know that the people who write for the Daily Mirror, you understand, like Daily Mirror is like what they call a tabloid. So it's for like, let's just say, people who maybe not that intelligent. So, sorry if you read the Daily Mirror. You should be reading newspapers anyway. The tabloid, you have a tabloid, which is more like a kind of less intelligent. And then you have a broadsheet. Broadsheet means like Independent, Guardian, these are broadsheet. They're for intelligent people. So you would think to write for a broadsheet, they get paid more. You need to be, no. Those people get paid more. Because there's a certain way in which you have to write to capture the attention of someone who doesn't have much intelligence. You have to be very expert. Otherwise, people's minds are like, we're all here. Sorry, I'm not casting a judgment on you. Our mind is in 100 places. How we will catch your attention to give you the message? You have to rack your brain. So Prabhupada, he was able to teach people who knew nothing an amazing philosophy. That's how scholarly he was. So deep, so learned, so many hours of study. But what was Prabhupada? Simultaneously, he was streetwise. He was practical. He wasn't just a philosopher, just a bookworm, just someone who knew lots of concepts. He knew how to be in the world, isn't it? Prabhupada said, no one can defeat me. I am a Calcutta boy. Prabhupada said, in two things, you should never be shy. Business and prasadam. And these two things, never be shy. So Prabhupada was such an expert. They went to Dai Nippon. Tamal Krishna Maharaj says, we went to Dai Nippon to get the order, the quote for printing the books. So you know how Prabhupada did? Prabhupada said, Tamal Krishna, you do the bargaining. So they went in, they sat behind the desk, the other person was there, so they began bargaining. No, this price, no, this price. So Tamal Krishna was saying, no, this price. The executive was saying, no, this price, this price. And then you know what Prabhupada did? Prabhupada kind of came into the middle of the table. And then he became like the mediator. They're printing Prabhupada's book. So Prabhupada said, no, Tamal Krishna, you should listen to what he has to say. He's making good points. And then he would turn to the executive, no, you should listen to what he has to say. And then Prabhupada became like the mediator. So immediately there was a trust now. And then finally Prabhupada said, I think this price is good. Everyone said, yeah, you are neutral. We will go with your price. Then they could understand Krishna Bhakta Vada Chatu. Krishna's devotee is very intelligent. He knows how to get things done. Even when they went to Detroit, how many of you have been to Detroit? If you go to Detroit, there's the Fisher Mansion. Very opulent. So the devotees were there, they don't have any money. Prabhupada said, we will go and see the Fisher Mansion, we will purchase. So they went there. So the agent is showing them around. Every single, they walk into like the foyer, and there's one of these rugs which is like a lion. You know they make those. They kill the lion, and then the lion face, they make it into a rug. So they walked in. So Prabhupada, he saw the rug. Then with his cane, he just opened the jaw of the lion. So I was dead. They walked around. In every room there was a chandelier. So the devotees don't have any money. So the agent's taking them around. In his mind, the agent is thinking, do these guys have any money? I'm not wasting my time here. And then they get to the final room, and the Prabhupada looks at all the devotees and he says, what do you think? One devotee, he goes, no, Prabhupada, it's Maya. So much opulence, it's Maya. Because Maya can also be used in Krishna's service. So only the best for Krishna. So Prabhupada looks at the agent and he says, so the agent's thinking, okay, let's do some bargaining now. So Prabhupada says, so we are beggars. I mean, that's not a good way to start. If you're going to have a business deal, that's not the best way to start. The Prabhupada says, we are beggars. You don't have any money. Now I said, we are doing good work. You should just give it to us. He said, it's out of the question. How I can just give it to you like that? Anyway, then finally they did some bargaining, and then Prabhupada said, okay, 1.5 million cash. You give it to us. So Prabhupada didn't have any money, but then he went out, he put the, and then Ambarish, and then there was one other Mataji, she was a model, and she had become a devotee. And together they made the payment. And so they handed over the keys to the devotees, and so the devotees were coming the next day to move in. And as they came to the Fisher Mansion, the agent, he was there with like 5-10 of his workers, and they were like taking all the door handles off, they were taking the furniture, like even the door handle was like gold, So they were taking it. So the devotees, they came in, they said, no, we bought the building. How you can take all these things out? They said, yeah, I know, we shouldn't be taking any of these things out, but we have to make our money back. Your spiritual master, he tricked us. I don't know how I sold this building to you for 1.5 million. We have to try and make our money back, have some compassion on us. Your spiritual master, he's powerful. I don't know how he did it. He completely baffled us. Prabhupada was so streetwise. He knew how to get things done. He was a person of the world, yeah, isn't it? This is Prabhupada in the airport, boarding a flight. And everyone will think, oh, he's just a sadhu, he's just a simple sadhu. He can give some classes. No. Prabhupada could get anything done in the world because he was streetwise and intelligent. Who can have both? Some people are philosophers, some people are managers. Prabhupada was a philosopher, a manager, and a saint at the same time. He had everything. That's how amazing Prabhupada was. Srila Prabhupada preserved tradition. You know, when Prabhupada was staying in Radha Damodar temple, you know what his daily routine was? Every day he would wake up very early, and then in the morning he would chant his japa and he would write. And then what he would do is at 10 o'clock, before that, he would go around all the samadhis every single day. To Jiva Goswami Samadhi, Rupa Goswami Samadhi. And then 10 o'clock every day, Prabhupada would go around to the main temples in Vrindavan for darshan. And then 11 o'clock, Prabhupada would go to the market and he would buy vegetables. And then 11:30, Prabhupada would come back to cook. Prabhupada would only eat once a day in Radha Damodar. Have you seen in Vrindavan Prabhupada's cooker? You've not seen? The next time you go to Vrindavan and you go to Prabhupada's house, you can see Prabhupada's cooker. It's a 3-tiered cooker. So in the bottom you put the vegetables, above that you put the dal, and above that you put the rice. I think it's in that order. And then you just light it at the bottom, and the steam comes through and it cooks all 3. So Srila Prabhupada, he would cook sabji, dal, rice, everything in 20 minutes. Indian style. And so when Prabhupada came to America, he taught the devotees the art of how to cook. He taught the devotees the art of how to really clean a floor. They were using a mop. Prabhupada said, what's a mop? Prabhupada said, let me teach you how to wipe a floor. And then Prabhupada got down on his hands and knees with a cloth. And he showed how you clean and you dry. And Prabhupada, when he came to America, he didn't put on trousers and all of that. Prabhupada just came in dhoti, a preserver of tradition. So Prabhupada was he brought not just a philosophy, but he brought a tradition, he brought a culture. But also, Prabhupada was not just a preserver of tradition, but he was also an innovator of tradition. Does anyone know what this poster is advertising?
Mantra rock dance.
The Mantra Rock Dance. Very good. The Mantra Rock Dance was an event that the devotees had organized in San Francisco for Prabhupada to preaching. This was a wild concert. I mean, the concert began at like 9 o'clock in the evening. That's just the warm-up. And then all the hippies are in there, they're on drugs. There's all these kinds of rock bands on the stage. And Allen Ginsberg is there. Some of you may know Allen Ginsberg. He was a promoter of LSD and so many things. He was like a celebrity of the times. So he was on stage. And then at 11 o'clock, something 10:30, Prabhupada came in. You can imagine, like the sadhu, Indian sadhu, walking into this concert, the Mantra Rock Dance. Everyone's on drugs, everyone is like half dressed, everyone is completely intoxicated, there's strobe lights going everywhere, and Prabhupada walks in. As soon as Prabhupada walks in, the music changes. The light show changes. They start to flash pictures of Krishna and Arjuna, Mahavishnu, the pastimes of Krishna. And everyone makes way. And Prabhupada walks into the Mantra Rock Dance. Then Prabhupada walks onto stage and Allen Ginsberg is there. So Prabhupada looks at Allen Ginsberg and he says, you say something. So Allen Ginsberg, he starts saying something about the Maha Mantra. And then he looks at all the thousands of hippies and he says, I recommend you come for the kirtans at the temple. And I particularly recommend that you come for the early morning kirtans when you're coming down from your LSD. So he gave them all a recommendation. Come for the early morning kirtan when you're coming down from LSD. So I says, begin chant. So Allen Ginsberg began chanting. Then at a certain point in the chanting, Prabhupada stood up. And Prabhupada began doing the Swami step. You know the Swami step? Like this, side to side. And the devotees looked. All these thousands of wild hippies, they were all dancing. And it was like a field of grains just moving like this. And Prabhupada just hypnotized all of them. And then they gave the mic to Prabhupada and Prabhupada began chanting, and everyone in this crazy concert was chanting Hare Krishna. And finally it got faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And then finally Prabhupada just stopped the kirtan. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa. He said, what is this? And then Prabhupada walked off stage and he looked back at one of the devotees and he said, good program, but this is no place for a brahmachari. Prabhupada was amazing, isn't it? He could relate to anyone. He could innovate. He came to America and made something which was thousands of years old, thousands of years ancient, and he made it relevant for them. Isn't it? In Vedic culture, we have the concept of Priti Bhojan. Priti Bhojan. So Prabhupada translated Priti Bhojan as the Sunday love feast. Priti means love, Bhojan means to feed. So we'll call it the Sunday love feast. We're going to feed the people with love. So Srila Prabhupada was such an innovator. And we have to innovate if we want to make Krishna consciousness continue it to be relevant. Srila Prabhupada was able to do both things. Anyone has any question, or any comment on anything so far? Yes.
As an innovator, you know the format of our programs in ISKCON.
Yes.
That's an innovation from Prabhupada. Normally we go to India, we just have deity versions. But here we have singing, dancing, chanting, class. So I felt that was innovation from the Christianity type of program.
Yes, of course, all the things that Prabhupada did in the morning program, this is also in Shastra. If you read Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion, then Rupa Goswami explains there are 64 items of devotional service. Dancing in front of Krishna, taking Charanamrit, smelling the flowers offered to Krishna, hearing Bhagavatam in the association of devotees. These are all the 64 items of devotional service. And shall I tell you an amazing thing? If you come to the morning program, how many of you came to the full morning program today? In those 4 hours, you have to make sure you don't come for Mangalarti and then go to sleep at 6:30. There's always a few casualties at 6:30. Madhav was one of them, There's a few casualties. 6:30 to 7. You have to keep an eye out for your friends, you know? Make sure. Some seem to merge into the Brahmajyoti at that time. They leave the Vaikuntha planets and they go into the Brahmajyoti of the sleeping bag. But if you stay for the whole morning program, you know how many of the 64 items you do? Just in those 4 hours, you know how many you do? Practically 90% of them. That's how powerful the morning program is. If I reflect, I think the best thing that I've got from having the great fortune to live at the manor in whatever years I've been there, the greatest fortune is being able to go to the morning program every day. Because just doing those things we do in the program, we're not aware how powerful an effect it has on our consciousness. So yes, Prabhupada established this morning program. Other places in other temples you will not see it. But in ISKCON temple, wherever you go. One time one person from Citibank, he said, he came to Mangalarti, and I spoke to him, and he said, you guys, I have not seen any management in the whole world which compares to you guys. I was like, are you true? Are you sure? Because there's no one as organized as you guys. I was like, really? I said, how did you come to that conclusion? He said, look, I'm the manager of Citibank. I know all these organizations, how they manage. Because you guys are better than anyone. How? He said, because I travel all across the world. New York, Paris, London. And whenever I travel across the world, I always come to the ISKCON temple. And you know what? In the ISKCON temple, wherever I am in the world, whichever culture I find myself in, at 4:30, at the same time, in every single ISKCON temple, the same thing happens, the same song, the same tune, because this is incredible management. I was like, wow, that's a nice observation. So he says, yeah, wherever I go, I observe how you guys do it. It's amazing management. So then I said to him, when you go around our temples, what do you do after Mangalarti? He said, after Mangalarti, I go home. I said, that's when all the mismanagement starts. In our temples, everything is brilliant until 8:30 in the morning. Everything is great. Everything's in order, everyone's inspired, everyone's fired up. But then after, what happened during the day, anything could happen. So I was just joking. But Prabhupada, he made this morning program. It's so amazing. So amazing. So he made it achievable for us. So he's innovating. So we have to innovate if we want to keep Krishna consciousness relevant. Yes?
So I have heard some criticism to Krishna West. I don't know if this has to do with what Hridayana Swami is doing.
Yes.
You could comment a little bit.
Yes, so for example, Hridayananda Maharaj is a great advocate of this, as a great follower of Prabhupada, that he sees that in order for Krishna consciousness to remain relevant in the world, then we need to adapt to the environment that we're in. Things that we did 40, 50 years ago may not be so relevant to do now. But the essential thing, and he mentions this often, is that we have to preserve the principle and adjust the detail. So for example, would you say the instruments that you use in a kirtan are a principle or a detail? It's a detail. So for example, if you chant Hare Krishna, but someone comes with an African drum because you're in Africa, is that okay? Yeah, because you're adjusting the details so that it's relevant, but the main thing you're doing is chanting Hare Krishna. Would you say reading Srimad Bhagavatam is a detail or a principle? A principle. That can't be changed. Tomorrow you can't say, no, Srimad Bhagavatam was good 50 years ago. Now we have to read, the 7 qualities of highly successful people. Sorry, no offense against that book, but it's not going to take you back to Godhead. It may help you, but it's not going to take you back to Godhead. Yeah, I also read that. Bill. So we have to know what is a principle, what is a detail. We have to make sure we preserve the principle, and we have to make sure we adjust the detail. Srila Prabhupada, when he came to America, what did he do? He allowed ladies to stay in the temple. Did they ever let ladies stay in the temple? In traditional India?
No. Not allowed.
Mataji, you would not have the opportunity if it wasn't for Prabhupada. Mataji is staying, she told me she's staying in the temple for the first time. You can give her a round of applause. Very wonderful garlands every day. So that was not allowed. But Prabhupada, he said no. We are now in a different time and we have to give opportunity. And so we should create a facility so that they can avail of this opportunity. So Prabhupada, and you know, Prabhupada was criticized. Prabhupada was criticized. Some people think, Prabhupada, he was a sadhu, he was a saint, he was also criticized. Prabhupada was attacked. Prabhupada had so many opponents. Prabhupada said, in Mayapur, I'm attacked by my godbrothers. In Vrindavan, I'm attacked by the Goswamis, the caste Goswamis. In Mumbai, I'm being attacked by the government. And in the West, I'm being attacked by deprogrammers. Everywhere Prabhupada went, there was opposition. Because if you don't have any opposition, it probably means you're not doing much. I have no enemies. It's probably because you're not doing much. As soon as you try to do something, you'll have enemies. You'll have people who will try to oppose you. So Prabhupada was innovating. So Hridayananda Maharaj has an initiative, Krishna West, in which he's innovating. And it's not for me to make a judgment on who's right and wrong. But we can say that the dialogue must be there. We must challenge ourselves to say, are Hare Krishnas still relevant in the world today? Are we relevant? Will people look at us and feel inspired that I want to be part of your movement? When we speak to the world, do we address their needs, interests and concerns? If we're not relevant, then people will not take much attention of us. When Prabhupada came to America, where's the first place that he stayed? Does anyone know? Sally Agarwal. Which was that place? Butler, Pennsylvania. Prabhupada was staying. And you know Prabhupada what he said? For 2 months in Butler, Pennsylvania, I was just studying the American people. Why do you need to study them? You got the absolute truth. Just tell them like it is. No. We need to study the people. We need to know where they're coming from. We need to know what they're interested in. And then let me make Krishna consciousness relevant for. So Prabhupada said for 2 months I was just studying. So the way Prabhupada communicated, he made it relevant for people. Prabhupada was in 26 2nd Avenue and there was a gathering like this. It was all hippies. And one person put his hand up and he said, Swamiji, what is the spiritual world like? So what will you say? Lakshmi Sahasra Satasampramanam. There are thousands of Lakshmis. And there are Surabhi cows. And there are... If you say it may not be relevant. So Prabhupada said, what is the spiritual world like? The spiritual world is like an ocean of LSD. So this hippie was like, whoa. I want to go there, you know. So someone could come and say, no, we're in Bhagavatam. I don't see. Bhagavan Uvacha, LSD, Sanam. Where is it? Where's the Shastra? Where's the Praman? No. Prabhupada was making it relevant for people. He didn't come and say, we're going to have Priti Bhojan now in San Francisco, we're going to have Priti Bhojan. Priti, what? No. Come, we're going to have a Sunday love feast. Love feast? Okay. We come for that. So, we must challenge ourselves. We must be willing to learn. Did you know that in India there's the Ganga? Of course you know. But did you know that the Ganga changes its course? Did you know that? Yamuna changes its course. If you go to Vrindavan today, you know that beautiful picture where Krishna is running with the cowherd boys? You know which one I'm talking about. If you go to Vrindavan, there's one track that's called the Cowherd Boys Trail. And that picture is depicting this part of Vrindavan. So if you go to that part, Cowherd Boys Trail, for those of you who have been to Vrindavan, it's where you get Kaliya Ghat, Madan Mohan, all of these, Keshi Ghat later on. In hundreds of years ago, the Yamuna was right there. But now if you look, where is the Yamuna? Much further away. So the Ganga, the Yamuna, they're always changing their course. So if someone says, no, I will come to this place to bathe in the Ganga because I've been coming here for the last 100 years. But if the Ganga has moved, you may come to the same place, but you will not get the mercy of Ganga because the Ganga has moved. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, people are criticizing me because I'm innovating. But they're as silly as someone who says, 100 years ago I bathed in here in the Ganga, therefore I should always bathe here. This is third-class intelligence. First-class intelligence is know how to preserve the principle and adjust the Anyway, sorry guys, a very long-winded answer. Anyone else like to say? Any asking? Yes, Dharmendra.
How do you think we've sort of gone about being the effector? How do you think we have been looking at people and watching them and seeing what we need to do? So I'm looking at it from the green agenda, for example. You know, comparing ourselves at the moment. What are we doing? And what would Prabhupada do at this point in time?
Yeah. Prabhupada had a voice on everything. In Prabhupada's time, the World War was going on. Prabhupada wrote about the World War from a Krishna conscious point of view. When Prabhupada came to America, the Vietnam War was going on. Prabhupada had something to say about that. When Prabhupada was traveling across the world, he came to Russia, and it was the Iron Curtain of communism at that time. Prabhupada had something to say about communism. Prabhupada knew how to address the issues of the world using the Siddhanta of the Bhagavatam. That requires intelligence. So we have to ask ourselves, how much are we able to present Krishna consciousness in a way which addresses what people are going through in the world today? If someone asks you, what is your perspective as a devotee on climate change? Many of us may even struggle to understand what is climate change, what is the issue. We may not even be aware. Sometimes as devotees, me included, we live with our heads in the clouds. Once I did a survey in the Brahmachari ashram to find out how many of the brahmacharis knew who was the President of America and who was the Prime Minister of the UK. I'm telling you, the results were not good. But Prabhu, we're not concerned with the word. we're living Krishna consciousness, we're living in the spiritual world. Yeah, that's good. But right now we're living in the material world and we need to help people. So in answer to your question, Dharmendra, I think there's a lot of learning we need to do. And I think there's a lot of deep thought that we need to do. If someone comes to you and says, what does the Krishna conscious person think about the Ukraine war? What would you say? Imagine tomorrow someone puts a mic in front of you. Oh, you're the Hare Krishnas. What do you think about the Texas shooting? What shooting? Some devotee may not know. What shooting? You don't know about the Texas shooting? Do you know? No, we don't watch the news. That's Maya. Yes. Yeah, so we should not watch the news for sense gratification. We should not watch social media to pass the time. We should not be on Facebook for hours and hours uselessly. One devotee, he once put a quote on the internet. Get off Facebook and put your face in a book. So Mataji, I 100% agree with you. However, say for example, 2 weeks ago I had to go to Cambridge University and the topic was in the divinity school was, is God still relevant in the 21st century? If I sit in front of 100 students and I don't have anything to say about the war, I don't have anything to say about eco-theology, I don't have anything to say about the Texas shooting, if I don't even know what's going on in the world, do you think these people are going to take me seriously? Prabhupada didn't watch the news, but Prabhupada knew what was going on in the world. So we have to be able to answer. Otherwise, we're not going to be relevant. Prabhupada said you've got to continuously innovate. Otherwise, today we are doing Hare Krishna, Hare Bol, but tomorrow there will be no more Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. There is a immense responsibility on each one of us to continue forward the legacy of Srila Prabhupada. Because you know how people are judging Prabhupada, right? You know how people are going to judge how amazing Prabhupada is? You know how they're going to judge it? By us. By us. We are the advertisement of Prabhupada for someone who doesn't know Prabhupada directly. How impressive are we going to be? How relevant are we going to be? How kind are we going to be? How much are people going to look at us and think we need more people in the world like these people. If you do that, doing a good job. If we don't, then we're not doing justice to Prabhupada. So yes.
In answer to Dharmendra Prabhu's question on green planet, green issues, our eco-villages, the houses that Prabhuji showed yesterday, innovation for the future.
Yeah.
I thought that our aim is to have community life, farms, and retired people. That's all green.
Yes. So that's why these initiatives in ISKCON. That's why, for example, New Mayapur is such an important place. You see, we come here for a retreat to get away from the city. And then after 3 days, we're like, I need to go back, so I've got to get a good net connection, I know you're all struggling with the Wi-Fi. It's okay. Take advantage. Soon you'll have 4G, 5G, and plenty of anxieties to go with. Right? So we come here for a retreat. It's nice. We get away from everything. But this also needs to be a place where people can stay for their whole life. You need to also show, yes, simple living, high thinking. Here I am. We believe in simple living, high thinking. Here's my iPhone 8. This is actually simple living because, what is it now? iPhone 14. See? Simple living. But we use this technology to share Krishna consciousness, but then we also have to show how we live separate from technology. So for example, our farm in New Vrajadam is incredible because did you know, how many of you have been to New Vrajadam? Some of you, right? In Hungary, in our farm, if tomorrow all the national grid would go out, all the electricity was cut, there would be no problem. No problem. Because they have their own fuel, they have their own food, they have their own shelter. What more do you need? Roti, kapra, makan. This is what you need. Some chapati. Internet. Roti, kapra.
That's an innovation for the internet.
So this is so important. So yes, it's a very good point. So this is our response. And it's a very good point because not just that we are saying, but we are showing. What about veganism? What is your opinion about veganism? Who thinks it's a good thing? Oh, we're split. Who thinks it's not a good thing? Okay, see? Debate. We should have that debate. It's good and it's bad. Good in certain aspects, maybe not so good in other aspects. If someone asked you, what do the Hare Krishnas believe about veganism? What would you say? So we have to be relevant. Prabhupada was so relevant. Sorry, so that was it. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I can understand about the ego village and so forth, but I think as a community, right, we don't sort of address the issues, for example, just small things like taking water rights. You know, us as a community should really be saying to each other, look, we've got to do these smaller things, which, the detail, as you're saying. And I think, yes, we're looking at the bigger vision, but the detail, I think we're not getting there. Or that's my opinion anyway. And I think the detail needs to be there.
100%. Every single Monday morning we have a brahmachari meeting. It's all very, Monday mornings all the brahmacharis get in the room. And then for 1 hour we talk about who stole my gamsha, who's snoring, that's sleeping in the non-snoring room, and why did this person leave the tap on? And then this week someone said, because now we serve prasadam in the Haveli, before we used to serve prasadam in the temple. So now in the Haveli, the devotees became lazy taking their plates. You have to carry the plate all the way from the ashram, all the way to the Haveli. So all the devotees were turning up to the Haveli let's just use a paper plate. And then 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Waste. Absolute waste. So one devotee said, for Krishna's sake, for God's sake, can everyone take their plate to the Haveli and just not waste Krishna's energy? And then we realized, yes. 1 week in a brahmachari meeting, we said, why is everyone using a shower gel? Every time you use a shower gel, it's like all this plastic, just absolute waste. Now times that by 20 devotees, now times that by 1 week, how much waste? And one bad thing about a shower gel in a brahmachari ashram is if by accident you leave your shower gel in the cubicle and 5 hours later you realize I left my shower gel, let me pick it up. Don't bother, it will be empty. So we made a policy, no more shower gel, everyone just use a soap box. It's much better, no? think it's a small thing. If we all became, what did Prabhupada say? First become conscious, then become. How you will become Krishna conscious if first of all you are not conscious? Therefore Prabhupada, once he was walking around and he said, did you hear that? It wasn't Vrindavan, it wasn't the bell. He said, did you hear that? The devotee said, no. Prabhupada said, again, that's the problem. He said, I am hearing, you are not hearing, I am seeing, you're not seeing. Then Prabhupada walked into one of the rooms and there was one tap and it was dripping. And Prabhupada went, it stopped dripping. Prabhupada said, you didn't hear it. It's Krishna's energy. Don't waste Krishna's energy. First become conscious, then become Krishna. So yeah, I really resonate with what you're saying, Dhananjay, because sometimes we want to tell the whole world how amazing it all is, but are we walking the talk? Are we practicing what we preach? Are we showing the example before precept? What does Krishna say in the Gita? Yad yad acharati shreshthas dattad evatarojana sayamat pramanam kurute lokastad anubharatate. What great people do, common people follow. And whatever standards they set by their exemplary life, all the world pursues. So, yeah, we have to be an example. We have to be a good example.
So you can add to this. Jayapataka Maharaj has now organized a team worldwide of doctors, specialists and everybody who, and they've set up a web, and it's all in the process where doctors and others give time and devotees can go there and for their health issues. And this is, like using your best qualities to offer in a voluntary.
Yes. There is a medical.
It's a big, major project. It's taken quite a few years to put it together.
Yes.
Maybe because of his illness, first they came together. But now it's for the devotees anywhere in the world.
Yes, so these things should be done. But primarily here we're talking about what are we doing for the world. We've got to walk the talk. We've got to walk the talk. Otherwise no one will respect. What is the time?
It's 4:41.
There are so many things to talk about Prabhupada and we will not get through everything. Prabhupada was resilient. Even when there were so many problems, he would carry on. Does anyone know? This is Juhu, isn't it? Prabhupada had so many problems. Even the devotees were saying to Prabhupada, why are we going through so many problems here on this land? There's no one even here. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's infested with snakes. Every day there's dacoits coming. There's a legal case on us. Prabhupada, let's just go somewhere else. And Prabhupada said, no. I made a promise to Radha Rasbihari that I'll build a temple for them here. Therefore, I must build a temple. And shall I tell you something amazing? Do you know that this property in Juhu, the one that the devotees thought this is a loser, no point staying here. You know this property is our most expensive property in the entire ISKCON. Because this property is where? Juhu. Who is living in Juhu? Amitabh, Shahrukh, all the great stars, and right in the middle, an oasis of spiritual culture. Who had that vision? Prabhupada had that vision. Despite all the struggles, he said, no, we should carry on. But Prabhupada was also flexible. Sometimes when it wasn't working out, Prabhupada just left. He said, no, it's not Krishna's plan. Does anyone know where this is? Jhansi. League of Devotees. And what happened in Jhansi? Loud, 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 loud.
I think the governor's wife wanted the building, so they gave it to the government.
Yes. So in Jhansi, Prabhupada wanted to start the League of Devotees and he was trying to buy a building. Anyway, they went back on their word, they took the building away. Prabhupada didn't fight. He said, no, Krishna has a bigger plan. And then eventually Prabhupada left. And then he left for America. Krishna had a bigger plan. There was one interesting thing that happened in Jhansi. Prabhupada he began doing one thing in Jhansi. He did it for the first time. Does anyone know what it was? He did, I wasn't writing. Prabhupada started in Jhansi, he did one thing for the first time. And then later on he did that unlimited times. But the first time he did it was in Jhansi.
Yeah, the disciple.
Yeah. Jhansi is the place where Prabhupada initiated his first disciples. Does anyone know the name of Prabhupada's first disciple? Charya Prabhaka. I think we've got to give Mara a round. Yeah. They used to have this game show, Mastermind, you remember that? And then they used to call the people to the front and say, so what is your specialist subject? So I think it would be Mother, Prabhupada. So Prabhupada left. So you see, sometimes in life, we have to be resilient. There are problems, there are difficulties, but we can't just give up. We have to say, no, I'm going to walk through this. And sometimes there are obstacles and then we just have to say, no, I think Krishna's got a bigger plan here. I should move on to something else. Now you're going to ask me the $64 million question. How do you know when to stay or when to walk? If you're having a difficult day on book distribution on the street, there are 3 options. Option number 1, go to Holland and Barrett and get some chocolate peanuts. Option number 2, change where you're distributing books, because obviously this is not a good spot in the street. If I go to the other side of the street, maybe it will make a difference. Option number 3, stay where you are and just ride it out. And option number 4, go onto the bench, read Bhagavatam, chant another 2 rounds, and come back with spiritual potency. Which is the right answer?
4.
4.
I'll give it 2 for 2.
3.
Other side.
All of them. Oh, the Narika even recommends number 1. That's not. She even recommends number 1 as a credible choice. Which is the right answer? There's no right answer. So what do we do? Choose. But how do you know which one to choose? Try all of them.
So the time, place, and circumstance?
Okay, here we go. This is it. This is the answer. Have a chocolate. Chant around. Change your position and then come back to the same place and stay there for the rest of the day. All we can do is go deep in and pray to Krishna. And pray to Krishna and ask Krishna, should I stay or should I go? But sometimes we can't hear Krishna. Can you hear Krishna? Can you hear Krishna's flute? Can you hear Krishna's ankle bells? Can you hear Krishna's voice? Always. Therefore we need devotees. Devotees can help you make decisions. But you also have to become thoughtful. It's not that every time you have a difficult decision, okay, phone a friend. Prabhu, I don't know, how many chapatis should I have? 3 or 4? Okay, quick, call a devotee. Chita Prabhu, should I have 3 or 4? You have to become a little thoughtful, you know? So we take help from the Shastra, we take help from the devotees, but then we have to be able to find Krishna within our heart. Because what does Krishna say? Tesham satata yuktanam vajatam kritipurvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamutayantite. If you're constantly satata yukta, if you're constantly connected to me, dadami buddhi, I will give you the intelligence. I will give you the intelligence to know. Prabhu, I'm 68. Should I retire now and take up vanaprastha? Or should I work few more years to earn some more money so the grandkids will be secure? How do I know? Decisions. So we need to take guidance and then we need to find Krishna within the heart. So many things I wanted to share with you. Prabhupada was bold and strong. Who is this? Does anyone know who this is? Cardinal.
Daniel.
Yeah, Lochanananda goes, this is the French guy. You know? Yes, 100%. Danielu, is that how you say? Danielu. And when Prabhupada met him, you can see the interview. How many of you have seen? You've not seen. You must see. Prabhupada is pushing one point with him. And what is the point he's pushing with him? Thou shalt not kill. Your own scriptures say thou shalt not kill. And then he says, no, but we have to be, you know, I can't do the French accent, but we have to be progressive. And Prabhupada, no. Prabhupada, you know what he once said? He said, I'm like a karate player. I hit on one point, and then I just keep hitting the same point. So he was bold. Prabhupada would call people fools, rascals, demons, hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. But it was coming from a place of compassion. Once in Bombay there was one Mr. Sethi, and he was a construction. He was basically doing so much for the devotees. And one time Prabhupada came, the devotees thought, let's give him darshan with Prabhupada, you know, he's doing so much seva. So they came to Mr. Sethi, Prabhupada met him one of the first times. Prabhupada said, what do you do in the morning? He said, I get up at about 10 o'clock. I mean, you could already see there was like... And then Prabhupada said, what do you do at 10 o'clock? He said, I have some breakfast, sometimes breakfast in bed. Prabhupada looked at him and said, what is the difference between you and a pig? So the devotees thought, oh my goodness. Oh no, Prabhupada, he's one of the good guys. He's helping us. He's donating, he's helping, he's supporting. He's our biggest supporter. Prabhupada looked at Mr. Sethi and he said, he looked him in the eyes and he said, don't waste your life. Don't waste your life. And Mr. Sethi, he said, Prabhupada spoke so harshly, so strongly, but he spoke with so much love that I did not feel any pinch in my eye. I fell in love with him. Because Prabhupada was so bold, but he did it with such love. Then later on Prabhupada said, don't try and imitate me. Prabhupada said, an old man and a young boy, they can go anywhere and say anything. But you cannot. So Prabhupada was bold, right? He was ready. But also Prabhupada was so kind, isn't it? He was so sensitive. Does anyone know where this picture is from? Butler, Pennsylvania. Oh, Pennsylvania? Whenever I hear Pennsylvania, I always think of Transylvania. Pennsylvania? No. Pennsylvania, not Transylvania. Prabhupada was staying there, and the Agarwals had a young boy. And what was the boy's name? Bridge. And you know what, Bridge? He loved Prabhupada. You know what he used to call Prabhupada? Swami Jesus. Bridge, he used to look at Prabhupada and say, Swami Jesus. Swami Jesus, Swami Jesus. And this picture is very beautiful because this is the first time that Bridge began to walk. And Prabhupada was right there. And you may say, this is just a kid, he's just walking, it's just a material body, just a material achievement. What does it matter to the pure devotee? The pure devotee is with Krishna. They have no concern, they have nothing to do with the material world. But Prabhupada was so kind. He was so loving. He was so human. He was such a generous person. And you know, when he left for New York, Sally Agarwal, who knew nothing about Krishna consciousness, she said, the day Prabhupada left, I felt sick. I just couldn't function because he conquered my heart. And she said, I never had one philosophical conversation with the Swami. I just lived with him, I functioned with him, I observed him, and I just saw that here is a very beautiful soul. She said when Prabhupada smiled, his laugh, his smile was oceanic. That was Prabhupada. He was so kind. So who can be bold but kind? Who can be strong but sensitive? Who can think big but have attention to detail? Who can be so deeply internal and at the same time ready to go out and relate to anyone? Prabhupada could do, because Prabhupada was a pure devotee. So when we say Prabhupada was a pure devotee, it's not just because Prabhupada knew many things, but you can understand the quality of a devotee through the quality of their character. A Vaishnava is not just what they do. Oh yes, I'm a great devotee because I've got this ability and I can chant this many rounds and I've got this many verses that I've learned. That's not what makes a devotee. A devotee is not what they do. A devotee is who they are. So when they asked Prabhupada, how will you know who is a Vaishnava? And what did Prabhupada say? A Vaishnava is a perfect gentleman and a perfect gentle lady. No, a Vaishnava is one who chants, who reads. Yes, but the fruit of all of that is that your personality becomes amazing. So when we observe Prabhupada and his personality, we recognize this is someone phenomenal. And so there can be no end in glorifying Prabhupada. One time they asked Prabhupada, and I'll end on this. One time they asked Prabhupada, can you say something about your spiritual master? And Prabhupada, he just looked down and he said, what can I say about my spiritual master? He was a Vaikuntha man. He was a Vaikuntha man. He just walked down there from the spiritual world and he just appeared amongst us. So what can we say? Prabhupada was a Vaikuntha man, Vrindavan man. And he came. And his life, his teachings are a constant source of inspiration. So if we're wise, we'll read Prabhupada's books very, very deeply. But not just that. If we're wise, we'll learn about the life and times of Prabhupada by reading all the biographies of Srila Prabhupada. Because then you will get the insight into what it means to be a pure devotee of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So there's so much, there's so many more things. But we can do another time. So I won't take any more questions now because it's 1 o'clock. And right, we should move on.
It's great Sutapa's asked for beauty. Now we have lunch, which will be served at the same place as breakfast. And then at 3 o'clock we have got Srila Prabhupada's pastime by His Holiness Janaran Maharaj and other Srila Prabhupada's disciples. That will be in Srila Prabhupada's room on the first floor where we went yesterday. So please come there at 3 o'clock. Thank you. That's afterwards. Okay, and also there's a Kartal workshop at 5 o'clock. So those of you want to do Kartal workshop by Abhay. Haribol. Haribol. I'm